Beauty is so many things to me. I think it's strength, it's individuality, it's owning who you are, it's allowing other people to be who they are. There's nothing more attractive and inspiring to me than when I see someone being okay with exactly who they are, and then also looking at somebody else who's even their polar opposite and being like, that's great too. Like, how boring would the world be if we were all the same? And it's like, you know, as long as you lead with kindness, I think be exactly who and what you are. First I thought, did my mom and my dad have the two main votes? I don't know, I kind of felt like it was saying something really lovely to my younger self, to my 20-year-old self, maybe to other people too, and I was just incredibly flattered. And I also thought we're in a nice place in the world where perfection doesn't mean better or worse. It's like it comes from the inside, and I like that a lot. I can get behind that. Missy McCarthy, never called Melissa. I don't think my parents have ever said Melissa. I was very active. I was very kind of 100 miles an hour into every possible things. I love sports, I love dressing up, I was kind of super high energy. I was always a creative kid. I think in high school, I knew I had a creative drive, and I didn't think of it as like, I'm creative, but I was like, I want to do things, I want to make things. I think I just always remember, in terms of being funny, we always, you know, most nights we ate dinner around the table. And I just remember my mom and dad are both funny, but my dad is funny in a way that's like, he can tell story after story after story after story. And like, even ones that like I've heard 900 times, and to this day, he can like reduce a room to tears. And most of us have heard it, which I think is a crazy skill set. And it was more like telling about the day. We would all end up laughing so hard that I was like, oh, I want to tell this weird thing too. And it just became such a part of kind of how we downloaded and communicated at the end of the day. And like, to make my family laugh, I think it's the first time that I was like, oh, that's pretty fun. You know, I didn't know it was a career choice by any stretch, you know, but I was like, I knew I liked that feeling. I feel like the first 2 years of high school really was like, we're all gonna dress alike, nobody wants to stand out too much. And then I was like, I think I'm bored. And then came the, like, you know, mohawks and the blue hair. And I think I was just trying to figure out, like, I just wanted to do something different. I think it's also where I am now, where I kind of like playing characters. I kind of like stepping into somebody else's kind of outer shell and being like, what does it feel like? How do people respond to me differently? Because I did look very menacing. I mean, on the outside, I was a really, really good, I think I was a very good like punk and gothic kid. But then I was terrible because I was really chatty, and I never was like, you know, so I looked like I was really gonna like maybe get into a fist fight, and then I was like, hi, what's your name? Like, then it was all like, I couldn't be cool. But I was fascinated even in high school that I was like, when I walked down the street and I looked like that, it was the first time that I'd ever had people kind of make fun of me or say really mean things to me, like even adults. And I just was like, I'd never had that, but I just kept thinking, you don't know me, you haven't talked to me, I didn't do anything to you. And I was like, oh, this is what, I was like, you're just assuming you know me. And it was a real kind of big eye opener that like people are just judging left and right. And I think luckily, instead of going back into my shell, I think that made me kind of want to seek out people doing that more, because I was like, that's so much more fun. It's so much more fun to whatever it is you want to do that day, be it, still be kind. And I mean, I have very, very eccentric, wonderful friends that are constantly delighting me, so I have no regrets. I think there's always moments where you have like good moments of like, I feel really good about myself, or I feel like I'm doing what I should. I feel like there was a shift in my 30s. I think there's a shift when I met Ben, my lovely husband, because he's so constantly like loving and kind. Like, he really just is, and funny, and the weirdest human I know, to be honest. That's fair, right? Super weird. I mean, he really is. He's a strange guy. And I remember thinking, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get married someday, but it won't be my family. Like I weirdly thought about that as a kid a lot. I was like, I wonder if it's weird when you get married that you say it's your family, but it's not your family, because your family, I was like, my family's my mom and dad and my sister Margie, and nothing will ever feel like that. And then with Ben, it was the first time that I really was like, oh, this, like, it can grow. It doesn't shift, it just grows. And then when we had the girls, I think it was the first time that I really was like, I feel in a really, really good place. Like, I'm in a really tired place, to be honest. But I was like, this feels like, with all the, there's hard days and great days, but I was like, oh, this feels really, like, I feel centered. We met at the Groundlings Theater, working together, writing together, putting, sketches on, performing on stage. And it just was always fun and easy. I mean, even if we were tanking, which there were plenty of bombs, oh boy, there were plenty of bombs. But even that would be, like, those are some of our favorite war stories, of just like, boy, did that audience hate us. It just, from the get-go, from like first day of class where we met, I sat next to him, we just got along. Found out we were both from Illinois, and he's the most steady Eddie, funny, as I said before, very strange, wonderful person. I would say as a mom, I am not the most laid back, not like a tyrant. I don't mean that. I'm really like, what are you doing? Do you want to go over your homework? Like, Ben is much more laid back and like, let them figure it out. I'm like, or I could empty their school bag and line up all their pencils. Like, I'm really like, how do I help? I call it helping. Other people would probably say you're meddling. But, I kind of still, they're not babies anymore. So it's like, if I could put them in a baby Bjorn and still carry my teenagers around, I would. But, and I'm the one to be like, pick up your room, Like, I think I probably worry too much about, like, if I don't tell them to pick up their room, then when they're in their 20s, they'll be that roommate, which I've had this conversation. I'm like, you don't want to be the roommate that everybody, like, sits down and is like, are we going to talk to them about, like, picking up after, or doing the dishes? Like, all those dumb conversations you have when you first start having roommates. And Ben's always like, they're going to do that anyway. That's what you have to go through in your 20s. But I'm like, but if I talk about it now, or like, don't overpluck your eyebrows. I've had 32 conversations with my daughters about that. They're like, we get it. We get it. And I'm like, in the 90s, they're like, we're aware in the 90s you overplucked your eyebrows. We've heard it. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I like to also think I'm fun. There's a version of myself that we call Midway Mom. We're coming back from visiting my parents, and we went through the Midway Airport, which is the small one in Chicago. And for some reason, I was with the girls, and just everything they asked for, I was like, sure, get it. 2 of them. You want a Coke? And then they were just like, what's going on? They're like, can we have Doritos? Yep. Anything they said, then it became a bit, and they were like, can we get sweatshirts? You sure can. Like, everything. I was like, you want a beer cozy? You want it, like, anything? And they were like, Midway Moms, awesome. And I was like, this all stops when we get on the plane. And then every once in a while, when I'm just like, I like to freak them out and just let them have something crazy. They're like, Midway Mom. Like, for no reason, like, I lost my mind this week and met someone's dog who's like a little long-haired, like a little wiener dog. We have 2 dogs, and they all want a 3rd one. And I said, absolutely not. We're not doing this. This is crazy. We already have 2 dogs. And suddenly I called the girls and I was like, guess who's getting a wiener dog? And they're like, Midway Mom! And now I'm like, oh my, I don't know what I've done. As you get older, I do think you're a little more like, everything we've been told since grade school. I'm like, was that true? Maybe I shouldn't have laid on a car in Illinois with baby oil on. I mean, guys, that's a true story. But yeah, I think now it's like, I'm still not great with certain things. From here up, I feel like I'm living it. Like jams, jellies, serums, weird machines like that, I used like crazy for 4 months, and then I don't know where they are. But it's here down that I could do some work on. It's like super hydrated and then alligator. But I'm working on it, guys. This is my journey. There's two versions of me. If I'm taking off my stuff, I do all my good stuff and a hot towel and the whole thing. If I come like this, what you're seeing right now, this is how I go to bed. I go to bed like a corpse. I lay it back and I wake up in the next morning and I'm like, good for me. I can sleep and not move, and everyone that does my makeup is like, oh, that's not good. You should wash it all off. I'm like, look at what you did today. I can't do this. And I do. I sleep like an absolute corpse, and I wake up and I go and I look in the mirror and I was like, that's a full lash, girl. It's a full lash on a Tuesday. I think my own style is constantly evolving. And I think I might like that best. And it is evolving from day to day. But I've learned that I need to be comfortable and I need to like it. And then it just is one more thing that I can do to make me be like, if I feel a little bit better about myself, I think I'm gonna be this much better to my kids, and my kids go to school and they're that much nicer. And then I'm, whatever the percentage is, maybe I'm nicer to somebody that I'm getting coffee from. And then I believe in that ripple effect with my whole heart. And I do think sometimes it starts with just like, and maybe it's less about what you wear in clothing as it is like, did I give myself the 12 minutes that, I think most people, especially people with kids, maybe, those are hard to carve out, those 12 minutes sometimes. I mean, I have dropped off my kids many of times in just full pajamas, and I embrace that. There's nothing wrong with it. I always thought, oh my God, if something happens with the car and I have to get out, this is gonna look pretty goofy. But I do think it's those like few minutes for yourself, and then you can just settle. And I think I'm like that much better throughout the day. And I always have this weird thing of like, I think if you kind of lead with that, there may be the snowball effect that could kind of add up by the end of the day.
Ariel, listen to me. The human world, it's a mess. Life under the...
I have watched Little Mermaid. I nannied for this wonderful family in New York in my 20s. And the girls, they could watch a little bit of TV every night. We could pick a movie. And there was I swear there was a 2-year jag where we watched Little Mermaid every night. And for some reason, I was just like, what do you want to watch? And when they would say, it was like, Little Mermaid. Or if they did want a different one, I was like, or we could just watch Little Mermaid again. It was such a source of comfort. And I really did, strangely, I was like, I loved Ursula. I loved her so much. I was like, she's such a broad. Like, I just wanted to have a drink with her. Like, I just was like, and yes, she's the villain, but I was like, I think I get her. Like, she's been ostracized, especially after COVID. I think we all get Ursula a little bit more, spending all that time alone. It's like, I just thought she was like funny, and I loved that it was about this, this young woman who was just trying to like figure out what she wanted.
The only way to get what you want is to become a human yourself.
Is that even possible?
It's what I live for. Now, getting to be a part of it and to step into this Disney Rob Marshall world, it was one of the most enjoyable, like crazily, like, what are we doing? How is this possible? How am I possibly doing this part? Like, I'm not a singer. I don't do this. I'm sliding down a 60-foot clamshell. I mean, this is everything I thought. When I was 20 and you have unrealistic goals, I'm like, I'll probably slide down a large clamshell. But it was like my 20-year-old, like every version of myself was just like freaking out because it was so fun.
True. Yes.
I've spent more time with Little Mermaid than probably any other movie, really, which I didn't really think about until Rob and I were talking, and he's like, did you see this a few times? I'm like, well, now that you asked me, I've seen it a weird amount of times. Which I could have frightened him. Luckily, it didn't. I knew Rob and John would make it something spectacular, and I knew that they would kind of redefine it and make it, if you're building a world that doesn't exist. Yes, Little Mermaid exists, but they're building this whole new, like, oh my God, a whole new world, guys. Oh boy, I did it, and I didn't even mean to. It's the world I want to be a part of. It's so diverse, it's so unexpected, it's so real. It is the world. Like, you know, it's funny when people are like, you can't do that. I'm like, make the world seem like the world? Well, it's a weird backward statement. It's entertainment at its best, but like, you feel it and nothing is being like, oh, we're teaching you something. It's just wonderfully enjoyable, and I think it's going to be such a good time for everybody.